let's begin. We will begin with opening statements, which were determined in alphabetical order. The first candidate speaking will be Carleigh.
Sorry. Yes, it's christening. It's good luck.
It's okay.
Does anyone have a napkin? Maybe in the back. While we're getting the napkins, I'm going to say, hello, everybody. My name is Carleigh Beriont. I am really grateful, Alex, to you for moderating. Mary McCarthy for all of the work that she did organizing this event. Kathy Edgar, who I'm pretty sure baked like 80% of the treats on the back table. And the Hampton Falls, Kensington, and Seabrook Dems. I am so grateful to be in this room with all of you tonight. Some of you know me, some of you don't yet, and for those of you who don't, it's really, really nice to be here with you. I'm a history teacher. I teach my students about the choices that people have made in our country's past that have brought us to this moment so that we can make better choices about how we get through this together. I'm also the mom of two awesome little kids, one of whom you may see running around without shoes outside. I'm married to a public middle school teacher, and I unionized my workplace. I'm a former union organizer. I'm also the chair of the select board here in Hampton, which is something that I'm very proud of, and it's something that has shown me on a regular basis the consequences of decisions that have been made in Washington, D.C. and Concord, and how they show up in our classrooms and our kitchens and our stretched household budgets and our really high property taxes here in New Hampshire. I know there's at least one person in this room who had to go back to work at the Marshalls because the property taxes that they pay went up so much in the last year. And I know that there are people here who are struggling for different reasons. And the main reason I'm running for Congress is because there are way too many people in this district who are hanging on by their fingernails right now. And I do not believe that anything will change for the better until we have people in Washington, D.C. who see our problems as their problems and who act with the courage and the urgency that this moment requires. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carleigh. The next candidate speaking will be Christian.
Sure, microphone's fine.
I know.
Yeah. So my name's Christian Urrutia. I come from Moulton Borough, up on the lakes, and it's really fantastic to be with all of you today. I'm going to take a moment and just introduce myself. I'm a first-generation American. I say that with like a lot of pride. I think it embodies the American dream. I grew up in Hudson, got a shot to go to law school, went off to practice international law and human rights, joined the military, became a public defender for our service members, and was an appointee of Biden at the Pentagon in the last administration, working on international humanitarian legal issues. I'm going to tell you the central question that I think we need to wrestle with in this election and in this country. And I suspect if you're in this room, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about in a moment. You wake up in the morning and you feel that sense of dread as you open up your phone or turn on the TV or read the paper as to, oh my God, what did they do yesterday, overnight? What are they doing today? We need to meet this administration head on. We need fighters in Washington. You know, I come from a record of taking on big fights. I chased down war criminals. One war criminal that I chased down was a guy that tortured and murdered a political dissident in Chile in the 1970s and was hiding out in Florida. The rule of law broke down in Chile, and this guy thought he could come to the US and evade accountability. And what we need in Washington are folks that can credibly go to Washington and fight for accountability. Because I'm going to be candid, the Democrats need some fighters right now, desperately. And so as you decide who to vote for, how the measure of the candidates, I say, who's going to fight for you against this administration for accountability? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. The next candidate that will be speaking is Heath.
Is this on? Hello? Can everybody hear me? Very good. Hello, everyone. My name's State Representative Heath Howard. I'm a little clumsy. I'll admit it. I apologize about spilling the water, but this is a situation where I've been considered a klutz most of my life. I mean, that was the high school superlative that I was getting actually. But the thing is that I got involved in politics. Speaking of high school, when I broke my back when I was 15 years old, I suffered a severe back injury, which needed 7-hour surgery. That I had my spinal cord rebundled. I was nearly paralyzed. I'm very thankful that I still have the ability to walk. But that experience showed me just how broken our healthcare system really is, and why we need to have a universal healthcare system that takes care of everyone and treats everyone equally, regardless of how much they can pay. And I really do believe that we need to have people in Washington who are fighting for things like universal healthcare, fighting for tuition-free public universities, fighting for tuition-free public trade schools, pushing to raise the minimum wage, banning corporations from the single-family housing market, and supporting our unions, and making sure that we are fighting for our public schools. Because we have so many problems that we're seeing rise even here in New Hampshire, and our elected officials are not doing their jobs to take care of it in an efficient and timely fashion. So please, I look forward to all of your questions, your thoughts, and your concerns, and I hope that I can answer them. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heath. The next candidate speaking will be Maura.
All right, we're going to try this out. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes. All right, well, good evening. I'm Maura Sullivan, and it is so wonderful to be here in Hampton, to see a lot of old friends and fellow veterans, and just to be here with all the fellow candidates. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for the organizers for bringing us together. I am a proud mom of 3 young kids. I live in the Portsmouth area with my husband, who is a Navy veteran. I am a proud Marine Corps Iraq War veteran, and was proud to be appointed by President Obama as Assistant Secretary of the VA, and later as a senior Pentagon official. I'm running for Congress for 2 reasons. Number 1, I love our country. I believe so much in its promise. I risked my life for it, and I served with the greatest men and women that I have ever known who gave their lives for it. And I look around right now, and this is not the America that I fought for. Number 2, I love our community, but people are hurting. Carleigh mentioned that a minute ago. My husband and I are truly products of the American dream. He's the son of immigrants. I was a public school kid, and I was a scholarship kid. I got an ROTC scholarship that made college a reality for me. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through school, including waiting tables. And then I joined the Marines, and I struggled. That was hard. And years later, when I went to continue my education, I took out hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans. We worked really hard and we had great opportunities. But I worry that those opportunities are slipping away for too many of our kids. And I want every kid in New Hampshire to have the opportunities that I did. One of the first things they tell you in the Marines is, Lieutenant, it's not about you. It's about the mission and the people that you serve. Well, I think it's time that we send a new generation of leaders to Washington, grounded in service, rooted in experience, to stand up to this president and take on this administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Maura. The next candidate speaking is Sarah.
Hey everyone, I am Sarah Chadzynski, or Sarah C for 603. We made it easier for you. I'm a mom of 3 with a background in nonprofit work and education. I'm a state certified teacher, and I'm the proud wife of a staunch independent who's a timber framer and local firefighter. And we really love raising our kids here in New Hampshire. I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. I also know what it's like as a single mother to walk in and apply for food stamps to get through hard times. I also know what it's like to roll your sleeves up and jump into work that feels impossible. I've gone into war zones, I've documented war crimes, I've built a nationwide coalition to get bipartisan legislation through, $61 billion through Speaker Johnson's office. No one thought we could do it. We did it. I did all of this because it's what I felt was right. Not because it was easy, because it wasn't. And I've done all this to stand up for freedom, democracy, and human rights, because that's what I believe is the foundation of our country. We're at an interesting time now. And yes, there's a man in the White House that we all want to get out. But he is a symbol of something much larger. And what we need right now, and the moment that we have, is the opportunity to elect a working class candidate that can build trust and faith in our government and bring us back from the brink. So I'm here to offer you myself as a tool in this moment.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. And the final candidate that will be offering an opening statement is Bill.
Hello, I'm Bill Conlin. I'm a Democrat. I'm from the great city of Dover, and I'm running for New Hampshire Congressional District 1. And the reason that I'm doing this is because, obviously, my entire society is a garbage fire right now. I brought examples, you brought examples, we've got this. But why I'm doing this is because this was all pretty much predictable. We can point fingers all we want, but the fact of the matter is about 50 years ago, President Jimmy Carter had a speech called Confidence in Crisis, also known as the Malaise speech by right-wing media. And in that speech, what he said was, the problems that we're facing as a nation at that time were because we had shifted our values from valuing people to valuing wealth. And because of that, we were losing the social and economic progress that we had seen in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And if we continued down that path, we would wind up losing all of that progress, as we have done with the loss of rights of women and the loss of voting rights just recently. But what he said was, we have to get back to a point where we value people again. This campaign is about valuing people. I'm not taking money as a gimmick. I'm taking money to prove to you that it can be done, that all the value in representative democracy comes from you. When you leave here, what influence you take away from any of us, who you talk to, your friends, your family members, your neighbors, your coworkers, etc., you are going to determine who wins this. Not money, just you. You have to realize you have all the power to change the world, and you have 100% control of it, and I'm going to try and show you that through these questions tonight. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll begin with the first question. The first question is, people in New Hampshire are suffering from high property taxes, much of which is being driven by decisions made in Concord and Washington, D.C. If you're elected in November, what is the single concrete action you would take in your first term to alleviate the financial impacts that are rolling downhill into people's property tax bills and rents? And how could you actually get it passed in a possibly still divided Congress? The candidate that will begin is Carleigh.
Okay, well, thank you for the question. I love this question. There are not one thing, you have to do two things. The first thing you have to do is fully fund our public schools. How many people here have worked in a public school or sent their kids to public schools? Yeah, how many people pay taxes to support our public schools and are mad about all the money that's going to vouchers right now? Most of us, right? So one of the things that's a real challenge is that 50 years ago, the United States Congress passed this landmark legislation that said every kid in the United States deserves a free, appropriate public education. And they were supposed to pay 40% of it, and they didn't. They didn't. Last year they paid 12%, this year they paid 7%, and we're unfortunately in a state that is last in the nation when it comes to state support for public education, and third to last when it comes to state support for cities and towns. And so as a result, we are paying for all of this. But one of the things that's amazing is that we can pass legislation. There's already legislation in Congress that has bipartisan support. We just need more people like me to go sponsor it and ensure that public education spending is mandatory. The second thing, if you look at our budgets, and I have looked at a lot of our budgets, I'm on the budget committee here in Hampton, and this is something you probably see too at home, is the high cost of healthcare. If we had a government that not just supported, universal single-payer healthcare, Medicare for all, but was willing to do things like expand benefits to healthcare or ensure that insurers have to pay the same amount of overhead as Medicare providers, or started bargaining for prescription drugs like the VA is able to. That would lower our property taxes here in New Hampshire. And again, these aren't particularly glamorous things, and some people don't see the connection between what happens locally, but we do because we pay for all of this. And it's something that we need partners in Washington to help us pay for. And so those are two things that I would immediately and enthusiastically support that would absolutely lower our property taxes here in New Hampshire and enable us to raise wages, which would help us hire people who could then afford to live and work in the communities at the same time, which would be so much more awesome than what we currently have.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carleigh. Next is Heath.
Well, I believe a lot of the same things that Carleigh just said. I think that she's spot on when we're talking about this issue in terms of how we can easily bring revenue into the state. See, in the state legislature, I've been fighting for additional revenue streams through things like cannabis legalization, taxation of second homes, actually making sure that we have an interest and dividends tax, pushing for basic things that we've seen time and time again that have been traditionally used to fund programs in our state. And it's a situation where we have seen such downshifting from Concord onto local property taxpayers that has really driven up a lot of your local bills. And we see this even from, Concord, which has also experienced that same downshifting as Carleigh referenced with IDEA not being fully funded, meaning that we're seeing those local communities and not having to pick only up the state's tab, but also the federal government's tab. And so this is a huge problem when we're looking at how we need to make sure that we can actually meet our funding. And we need to talk about things that we can actually do to increase revenues. We also need to talk about actually eliminating a lot of additional costs that we see. Because when Republicans say that we live in a welfare state, technically they're correct. It's just that it's not the welfare of the individual, it's the welfare of the corporation, where we see giant subsidies being provided, huge tax breaks. And these things could be put towards the people rather than these large corporations. And I think that's what we need to be doing in order to make sure that we actually have a tax code that works for everyone. Thank you.
Wonderful. The next candidate speaking is Sarah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I have taught in public schools, I have taught internationally, I have taught at private schools, and one of the number one things and the most concrete thing that we can do to ease the burden on our property tax immediately is move towards universal health care and lower the cost of providing health care to our public employees. It is number one. And I'm not waiting till I get elected. I was actually on the ground in Washington, D.C. last week, meeting with offices on all sides of the aisle to work on legislation right now, because we don't have time to wait. I don't know about you guys, but my health care went up to $2,600 a month for a family of 5. That's $30,000, not including the deductible. Brings us close to $50,000, including the deductible, on a working class income. That's almost a third of our income, if not more, on a good year. Okay, so that is number one, and I'm the candidate who's already been working on it and will continue to work on it as an immediate. The second part is looking at what we can do at the federal level to pull levers here at home on the state level to hold the governor and the executive council accountable for passing a budget that does not fully fund our schools. This is a major issue, and we are all feeling it. So it's a twofold. At the federal level, easing the burden on healthcare immediately and working towards universal healthcare. I have a plan that I've already got bipartisan support for, so keep an eye out for that. And number two, pushing the levers at the federal level to put pressure on our governor and the executive council to fully fund our schools. This is across the board, all of New Hampshire, and across the country, a major issue. So thank you so much.
Next is Bill.
Okay, well, pretty simply, it's we have to tax the rich, okay? That is where all the wealth is. That is the only way we're going to pay for any of these things. We have a lot of programs. They're all great, but we don't have that wealth. And one of the biggest problems that we have right now is the way that we've been running deficit spending. With modern monetary theory, if you know anything about economics, running those deficits is really what's causing a lot of these prices to shoot up. Now, if you look back to the last time we ran a surplus, for example, that was under the Clinton administration, and you were paying less than $1 for a gallon of gas, and a hamburger at McDonald's was reasonable as well. So what you have to do is you have to start taxing the rich, you have to start getting them to pay for all of these programs. And this is really what I'm about in terms of, like, we have to start valuing people. When you start valuing people, when you think of those kids in those schools, and you think about those homeowners paying those taxes, when you value those people, you stop valuing those wealth, it becomes a lot more easy to go and say to the wealthiest 1% or 0.1%, you're gonna have to start paying for this right now. Thank you.
The next candidate is Maura.
I just have to say, a few things make me more excited than a robust conversation about public education. Public education was a first date conversation between me and my husband. The public schools made me who I am, and my husband, all the opportunities he had was because of the great public education that he got. This is a real issue here with property taxes. Here's the 3 things that I think we need to do immediately. Number 1 is the federal government, this has been mentioned a few times, but the federal government needs to play a much bigger role in funding public education at the local level. China is outpacing us, graduating 10 times the engineers that the United States is annually. That's bad, because that down the road means jobs. And it's the role of the federal government to make sure that public education is robust throughout our country. Second thing that we can do, again, to relieve property taxes is Medicare for all who want it. Healthcare costs are just too high, and they are crushing people around our state. The third thing that I would be focused on is getting on the Appropriations Committee and getting infrastructure funding back here to New Hampshire. And then working with the governor to say, you can take this out of your budget, because we've got this federal funding, and you can pass that on to property tax relief. Now, how are we going to fund this? Here's the 2 places I'd start. Number 1, the Pentagon budget. The Pentagon does not need $1.5 trillion on defense. I plan on serving on the committee that oversees the Pentagon. I've got the background to do that, to not only stand up to this president, but to also call the Pentagon out for not needing the money that it thinks it needs. The second place I'd look is taxing billionaires. Okay, and that can start to fund and bring some of that local relief that we need. And then finally, here's the other tactical thing that I'm going to do, because we're going to have to get some of this done on a bipartisan basis. I'm going to join what's called the 4-Country Caucus. It's a bipartisan caucus of veterans, and work with those bonds of service, cross party lines, and work together, because the issues that we're seeing here in our state are not Democratic issues, Republican issues. They're just people's issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the final candidate is Christian.
Thanks for your question. I'm a product of our public schools. Not just elementary school and middle school and high school, all the way up to my law degree and my master's. I think it is the essence of the American dream. You provide a high-quality education that's available to everyone to go out and pursue their dreams. That's under assault in America. Just as from the Trump administration and from the fact that the federal government has failed all of you. And you see it actually in your property tax bill. So a few things, and a few folks have already referred to these, but I think they're really important. One of the largest line items in the budgets of any town is paying the healthcare costs of the teachers and the other municipal workers that work there. Medicare for all will help reduce the burden on all of you. The sensible question then becomes, how the heck do you pay for that? Tax the billionaire class. The vast majority of the gains that we felt as a country in the last 25 years have gone to the top 0.1% and 1%. The 1% own 40% of the wealth. The bottom 50% own 1% of the wealth. And it's getting squeezing all of your communities. So we actually need to tax the billionaire class. And then we need to make education the priority it deserves to be. That means no unfunded mandates to the states. The federal government has to pay its fair share. That's how we actually start prioritizing education in this country and giving everyone a fair shake.
Wonderful. For the second question, several candidates just alluded to the topic. It became a major topic of conversation. The question is on health care. The Trump administration has proposed significant cuts to Medicaid NIH funding has been slashed also, but Democrats in this primary have meaningfully different views on how to approach healthcare. Some support Medicare for all, and others support defending or expanding the ACA. Tell voters clearly, what is your position on healthcare as it looks like in America, and how will you get your way? The first candidate will be Christian.
I feel like I'm going to talk about what I just talked about. That's okay. That's all right. So look, Medicare for all. Well, what does that really mean? Let's just be frank. What does that actually mean, right? Medicare for all, the idea that everyone in this country is enrolled in Medicare automatically. So everyone has that baseline level of healthcare. Why is that so important? And the reason why we're in the mess we're in. So if you all remember, during the ACA debate, there was a thing called the mandate. It forced everyone to either face a penalty or actually get health care. And the idea was that you would take young guys and women to ultimately buy into the healthcare system and even out and smooth out the costs for, frankly, older people that are gonna face more medical issues. That eventually got kicked by the Supreme Court. And so what it's allowed is ultimately the ACA systems to break down. And that's why Medicare for all is so important. We need to have a system that's available to everyone, that has healthy people, ultimately balancing out costs to people that are gonna get sicker. I think that's incredibly important. And, not to sound like a broken record, you pay for it by taxing the billionaire class. Okay, and you actually empower Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Because all of you right now are getting screwed by the pharma industry. Right now, you all pay more for medicine than the people in Canada pay for the same medicines. And it's because of money in politics and the pharma industry. And so the questions of NIH and some other things that you mentioned, a few basic things we need to do. Get rid of Robert Kennedy Jr. He shouldn't be there, all right? 2, actually fund these programs. We are losing the world's best scientists because they don't want to deal with the nonsense of RFK Jr. and this administration. We need to actually become a place where the best and the brightest want to work in America on these important issues. Thank you.
Thank you. The next candidate is Carleigh.
Okay. Actually, I'm gonna stay. All right, it feels fair for stay to say. Hi, everybody. So Medicaid, Medicare, NIH cuts, what is your position and how do you get your way? My position is that every human being deserves health care from the day that they are born until the day that they die, and that health care should include things like your eyes, and your teeth and your mental health. The things that we teach our kids are all part of the body and are not currently covered under Medicare. And there are a number of things that we need to do in order to make this happen. Has anyone ever heard of vertical integration? Okay, well, we're all suffering from it. So what's crazy is that in the United States, there's like 5 companies that own your doctor, they own your pharmacy, they own your insurance company. CVS is one of these, and we've seen how that impacts us. They take cuts at every single part of that process, and it makes our healthcare more expensive. And Congress can do something like pass legislation to break up big healthcare, right? We have a huge problem with monopolies in this country right now. And what's exciting to me about that legislation is that it's currently in Congress and it has bipartisan support. This is legislation that could be passed. So it's not like me going in there and saying, hey, I want to have my way and everyone's getting universal health care. It's saying, hey, I support Medicare for all, and I also support expanded subsidies for ACA, and I also support anything that will give more people in New Hampshire the ability to take care of themselves and their families. One of the things that I'm surprised didn't come up last time around was the Met tax, which is the 4th biggest source of tax revenue in the state of New Hampshire. It's the Medicaid enhancement tax that enables us as hospitals and rural healthcare providers to draw down matching funds from the federal government. And this was one of the huge things got taken out of our state revenue under the big, beautiful bill that was passed last year. So I would also be fighting to make sure that those cuts that happen to Medicaid and Medicare recipients are reversed, because this is something that's really harming a lot of different people, and it's a huge problem for the United States. But if I have a couple more minutes, I will also say, maybe seconds, things that drive me nuts. I got 3 bills from my insurer today for the same procedure, and they each had a different date. And I was like, what are we doing here? We need to pass legislation that reverses and shortens prior authorizations. Okay, there's a lot that we can do. Come find me after if you want to hear more.
The next speaker is Heath.
Thank you. We need a Medicare for all system that is a single-tiered system. Because when we have multiple tiered healthcare systems like what we have right now that allows you to have different packages and different levels of care, it means that we are prioritizing patients based off of how much people can pay rather than focusing on who needs the care. And we have seen so much investment in healthcare companies where they are choosing to put profit over our own health. And we need to make sure that we eliminate all profit incentives, because healthcare it's vertically elastic, meaning there is literally no change in how demand works. So whether you're going to pay $100 or $10 million, you will pay whatever it takes to get that healthcare. And that's where exploitation is very, very easy to come into play. And we've seen insurance companies continually do this. And that's why we can't allow for an insurance company to continue to exist in the healthcare industry. I think that it's a very big problem, and it's something that we need to be pushing for. Because if we don't have insurers in the healthcare industry, that means that we will have better coverage overall. Because we won't necessarily be having to jump through all the different hoops, like the 3 bills that Carleigh just got today, in order to get the care that we need. Thank you.
Wonderful.
You have 30 seconds.
I have 30 seconds. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, for sure. I'll take the 30 seconds. So yeah, but beyond just the healthcare that we're providing in this country, we need to actually look at how we're actually going and actually recruiting doctors to come here. Because we've seen a real problem where doctors and medical school graduates have been consistently increasing, but we have not necessarily seen an increase in the number of residency positions that are available. And that's actually limiting how many doctors we actually have.
That was your favorite. Good job.
Thank you. The next candidate speaking is Sarah.
Hi everyone. So this is an incredibly important topic to me, and I want to be very clear with you. I'm never going to tell you, I'll stand up because you guys can't see, and I'm little. I'm not going to tell you that on day one we can pass Medicare for all. We've been trying to do that for 20 plus years. But I do have universal health care as a number one because we need to take steps towards that. So number one, what I'm working on right now is having the federal government take over re-risk insurance. That's number one. And we can get into the details of that if I have time. Number two, we need to hold insurance companies accountable. My mother is a family doc. She went back to school after I was born. I saw her graduate when I was 14 years old and build her medical practice. My mom spent nights sleeping on the library couch so that she could take an exam or be in an important lab in the morning, and you have insurance companies telling her how to care for her patients. That doesn't fly with me. That's number two. Number three, we need to transition medical care from a for-profit industry to a nonprofit industry. I've been doing nonprofit work for 20 years. When we look at hospitals that are closing maternity wards because they're not profitable, we have a problem. My husband's a firefighter. I graduated high school as an EMT. We all had to learn how to deliver babies on the fly. But it never really happened, maybe once in a while. We are now seeing statistically more deliveries happening in transit. Why? Because we don't have access. So we have 70,000 seniors in this state that are no longer able to access their health care because of the MAC costs. We have 200,000 plus veterans that are no longer able to access their health care. Right now, we need to get actual reform put in place. ACA is a Band-Aid. Okay, it's a Band-Aid. Let's call it what it is. It's a step in the process. But we can do this. We can get this done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next candidate is Bill.
Okay, very simply, Medicare for all. What I'm trying to do is sort of get our party to be a party that is the party that only values people and not that wealth anymore. And so obviously Medicare for all is something that I think that we need to be united behind. We're not going to get anything done in the next 2 years. That's pretty obvious. I don't think that the old man is going to allow us to have any accomplishments to run on in 2028, okay? But we have to win in 2028. We cannot lose the White House the House and the Senate in 2028, or this one's pretty much over, and I think everybody understands that. This is a very important 2-year period that we have. What I'm trying to do with this campaign, and what I'm trying to do to convince people or tell people is we have to change the view of our party, where we're not the party that people vote for when they hate the Republicans, but they're the party that people want to vote for. We should be passing bill after bill, including Medicare for All, over the next 2 years. Single bills, putting it on his desk, making him veto it, turning around to his people and saying, see, he doesn't care, and do it over and over and over again until they learn their lesson. And they suddenly realize, we are the good guys. We are the ones in the white hat. But we have to, but that's why Medicare for All is a big part of it. We have to do bills and argue our bills based on how we value people and not value that wealth anymore. So, thank you.
You have 25 seconds.
I'm good.
Thank you. And the final candidate for this section will be Maura.
So Medicare for all who want it will be the first piece of legislation that I will co-sponsor in the House of Representatives. And here's why. This is crushing everybody in our state. And you certainly don't need me to tell you that, to know that. I've been campaigning for this office now for 14 months, and it's every single day I hear, the woman in Laconia who was about 65 years old who broke down crying to me in a room of about 30 people, saying they worked hard jobs and were worried they were going to go bankrupt because of healthcare. It was the young dad on the Seacoast recently who was worried about taking his son to the pediatrician because of costs. It was the business owner in Laconia who wanted to add additional square footage to his warehouse and promote 12 employees, raise their salary. Couldn't do it because of one family crushing healthcare costs to his business. And we don't have time to wait. We don't have time to wait till 2028 to get movement on this. I agree with Sarah. The ACA is a Band-Aid. But let's just do a reality check as to where we are. We are in a toxic political environment, right? Our government was shut down for 42 days over this issue. So here's what, and that was just to repair the ACA, which is not enough. So here's what I'm hopeful for and will be working toward, which is working with Democrats and working with Republicans. I'm going to start with fellow veterans to co-sponsor a first step, which is Medicare for all who want it. Because, and here's why I'm hopeful that we can start to move down that road, is because when I go talk to small businesses, when I talk to working families, again, these are issues that exist in Republican areas too. And so when we go and we work with Republicans in Washington, their small business owners are hurting as well. And look, I have a lot of experience reforming healthcare at the highest levels of our federal government when President Obama appointed me as Assistant Secretary of the VA. I'm really proud of the work we did, bringing better access to care for over 9 million veterans in over 151 hospitals and over 1,200 community-based outpatient clinics around our country. But healthcare reform is hard, and that's why I'm going to start tackling it on day one. And the answer is Medicare for all who want it.
Wonderful. Thank you. The third question is on the issue of housing. Housing is the #1 issue New Hampshire residents name when asked what is broken in this state. Rents are up, inventory is low, purchase prices remain high, and young families are leaving. What is your theory of how the federal government actually moves the needle on this issue? And please tell us specifically what you have personally done in any role that you've held that gives voters confidence that you can. And the first candidate that will be speaking is Heath.
Thank you. So we have a lot of problems when it comes to housing. We're seeing young people flee the state. We actually just passed Maine as the oldest state in the country. And it's partially because housing is way too expensive. I mean, we also have the highest in-state tuition anywhere in the country for our in-state universities, but we have a number of reasons why young people are fleeing. And part of that is we have seen the Northeast become an area where private equity firms and large corporations are investing because we're seen as a climate haven. And New Hampshire and New England as a whole has had a number of single-family homes being purchased by these large corporations. And they're pushing out single families. It's a real problem where they're slapping $100,000 over asking price. And individual families can't afford to compete with that. There's no way that a new family is going to be able to slap $150,000 over asking price and then compete with that giant corporation. It's not going to happen. And that's why we have low vacancy rates, while yet we've been building more homes than we've ever had. I mean, Governor Ayotte, during her State of the State address, was bragging about it. Yet homelessness is at an all-time high. Part of it is we need to ban corporations from entering the single-family housing market. We need to make sure that these large corporations don't have incentives to turn these homes into short-term rentals and Airbnbs rather than long-term rentals that actually help provide housing for the people in need. Because when we have this happen, when we have large corporations turn housing into short-term rentals, it jacks up rents because it lowers our vacancy rates while simultaneously taking that house off the market. And that's a huge problem. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. The next candidate speaking will be Sarah.
All right, so I had this conversation with my father recently. We were talking about the cost of housing, and he was reflecting on the fact that when he and my mom bought their first house, it cost about their annual salary. That was the purchase price of the house. Can anyone in here buy a home or a condo or an apartment on your annual salary right now? I know I cannot, right? So this is a major issue, and it comes down to a few things. We've already talked about property taxes crushing in New Hampshire and why. We don't need to recreate the wheel. I was on the Master Plan Implementation Committee for affordable housing and dealt with a lot of the not in my backyard kind of mentality, right? And there are solutions that we can look to around the world that we can implement at the federal level and then support down at the local level. Take a look at Vienna, Austria's housing solution. We don't need to recreate the wheel. And I'll be the first person to tell you I am not an expert in everything, and there are people that have far more brilliant ideas and solutions than I do. But I am able to actually get this through. And so what you're looking at is a system that we can put in place at the federal level, a building system and social system of housing, down at the local level that's supported by federal funds. How do we do that? Well, I'm one of the first candidates to support Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders' tax on billionaires. That's 938 people. I'm going to say that again. 938 people that if we gave them a 5% tax would generate $4.4 trillion over the next 10 years. We have solutions. We can do this. The second piece to this that's very easy to do at the federal level is to close loopholes on the Private Equity Act that allows families like mine.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry. Thank you. I could keep talking about it.
The next candidate is Bill.
Okay. When it comes to housing, what a lot of people don't seem to get is that housing is not a free market. And so when people come with free market solutions, it's never going to work out for those that are forced in that market. And the people that are forced in that market are, for example, the renters and the buyers. You have to have housing. We've turned the private housing market into an investment because it's a forced market. It's easy to make money in a market where people have to buy your product. So an example of what we have similar to that, or what I think of similar to it, is education. It's forced market. Your kids are forced to go to those schools. So they could have it a private market and make everybody go to a private school and it costs you an arm and a leg, but what we did, we built public schools. We built a public option for a forced market. This is how you wind up getting prices lower because there's a competing market to go into. I'd like to see something where we have a public housing market, but it's not going to be just warehousing the poor. It's going to be available to everyone. Seniors who are on limited income can apply and go live in a halfway nice place in their community. And right next door to, say, a single mother, and right next to them is a young couple that's trying to save up money in order to buy a house on the private market. So yeah, I think we're going to need a robust public market. And another reason for this is because our economy is probably going to hit the skids real soon. We're going to have large unemployment. I don't know if we can get this done in the first 2 years, but at some point we're going to have big projects. This is a good big project to have. It shows that we value people and not that wealth, and so it works for our party as well as run on. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bill. The next candidate is Maura.
So we have a fundamental supply and demand issue of housing in our country, okay? And that needs to be right. And in order for that to happen, we simply need to build faster, build more housing, and we need to be able to build it faster and cheaper. I plan on serving in the committee in the Congress that oversees affordable housing policy for the country, because it's such a huge issue in our district. And the challenges that each part of our district face are unique, but they all need solutions that require federal help. I was really proud to work on affordable housing for veterans when I was Assistant Secretary of the VA, and we got a lot of great work done. Here's 3 things that I would be specifically focused on in Congress on our behalf. And a few of them have been mentioned by my colleagues here. Number 1, we've got to close this private equity loophole. It's really disgusting. You've got these big corporations buying up swaths of affordable housing and then pricing out single families. It's happening particularly in the North Country and our district, and it does not work for working families, so we need to stop that. Number 2, we need to better incentivize, and the federal government can do this, we need to better incentivize affordable housing developers to actually develop affordable housing. They don't make as much money on it, so they're not as inclined to do it. But the government can regulate that, and the government can incentivize that, and the government needs to incentivize that. Third and finally, I will be fighting for infrastructure funding to bring back to our state to then work with local leaders to develop affordable housing in each one of our areas in our district. And that's a key thing that I want to just put down here, is that it is a partnership between the person who is representing us in Washington and the local leadership at our town, at our county, at our city levels to figure out what is the right solution for our seacoast, which is different than Manchester, which is different from the North Country. But ensuring that we've got the resources, we've got the right regulations, and then we get the correct solution in place for the particular area.
Thank you. The next candidate is Christian.
I think this is such an important issue. Whenever I think about this, I think of my parents. You know, they immigrated to America, and we rented a home until I guess I was 14. I remember how proud they were when they had enough to get a down payment and buy a house, an idea that they had a bit of the American dream, a slice. The reality is, though, our housing market is severely broken. In the 70s, the average home cost 3.5 times the average yearly salary. Today, 7 to 8 times. And the fundamental reason is we don't have enough houses. Full stop. 5 to 6 million homes short. But it gets worse. We don't have the right type of houses. When I was born, 30% of new builds were starter homes. Today, that number is 6 to 7%. We have to incentivize the building of starter homes in our community and the ability to build a lot more. I've laid out on my website a plan to do that, and it's based on the use of a national infrastructure bank that provides low-cost loans to builders that incentivizes them to build starter homes and build homes that will only go to people that want to live in the communities, not to private equity or to large corporations. But that's just not enough in of itself, to be really frank. This is a problem at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. What the federal government can do is build incentives for local municipalities to upzone areas, to give grants to build sewers and water lines that are so many times a block on the ability to actually develop more housing. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, America needs more housing, and that needs to be our North Star. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And the final candidate for the section will be Carleigh.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. I'm going to stand just so the people in the back can hear me. So in July 2012, my husband and I got married on Lake Mascoma in Enfield at our friend Dick and Lisa's house. Dick owned a bike shop, and he closed that bike shop this year and went back to building houses. And I said, Dick, how are you building houses this year? He said, it's actually really hard. I can only build houses for people who have like $2 million, which in New Hampshire is not a problem, but is actually a huge problem when it comes to dealing with our housing crisis because there's no financing available for small builders. And so this is a huge problem that we have right now that Congress can do something about. We also have a huge issue with land speculation. So people buying up land and holding it with the promise that down the road they might build without necessarily building something. I talked to Jerry across the street. I say, Jerry, how's the building going? And he said, actually, it's been really slow because of these tariffs, which have raised the price of things like lumber and windows, and the fact that it's so hard to find labor that can afford to live and work in the state of New Hampshire. So these are a whole bunch of issues that are interconnected, and there's a lot that we need to do about it. I'm really glad that other people are starting to realize how much of an impact we can have by asking the federal government to incentivize the construction of sewer and water lines. I'm a sewer commissioner here in New Hampshire in Hampton, and one of the biggest impediments to affordable housing and for rezoning for redevelopment is how much it costs to build the things that are underneath the ground. Right? If you look at the warrant articles that pass your towns, you're going to say, hey, why are our roads so crappy? One of the reasons the roads are so crappy is because we don't want to pay the money to pave over them, because most of our pipes are like 100 years old and about ready to bust. So there's a lot that we need to do about this, and things that I've done. 2 weeks ago, it was Affordable Housing Week in New Hampshire. In Hampton, we passed 5-0, a proclamation to recognize that. Hampton has received housing opportunity grants. While I've been on the select board, we have been recognized as a housing champion. While I've been on the select board, I am part of the Home for All Coalition here in New Hampshire, which is Rockingham, Stratford, and York County, Maine, which deals with homelessness across the spectrum. I'm also part of the Continuum of Care in Nashua, which helps us see how we can expend federal funds. So there's a lot we can do on this together.
Thank you, Carleigh.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to the fourth question now. So the fourth question is going to be a little bit of a pivot. We're going to talk about winning the general election. So we know New Hampshire's 1st congressional district has changed hands a number of times in the past 2 decades. What is your theory of how a Democrat wins New Hampshire's 1st congressional district in November and beyond? What about your background, your record, your message, and your campaign makes you the candidate most likely to do so? And we will begin with Maura.
Well, Alex, I think this is a great question. I'm glad we're talking about it, because there is so much at stake for our country. And, you've got a great group of candidates up here. But at the end of the day, this isn't actually about any one of us. This is about 700,000 people in New Hampshire right now that depend on Chris Pappas and his team for things like constituent services. I need a passport, right? My Social Security check hasn't come in. And at a time when Democrats are 3 seats down in the House of Representatives and Donald Trump's in the White House. So that is what is at stake. So this is the question that we should be asking ourselves. Here's why I believe we've got the best shot to win. Number one, I'm a proven fighter. Taking on this administration, holding Trump accountable, standing up to this administration. I was in Fallujah in 2005 in the Iraq War. Standing up to these guys is not the hardest thing that I have done. Number two, we are building the broad coalition to win. Everyone from progressives to moderates to independents and even Republicans are joining our team and joining our coalition because they're excited about a new generation of leadership grounded in service, not politics as usual, rooted in experience, who's ready to take on really, really tough fights and fight for the 98% of the rest of us, not the wealthy and the well-connected in the top 2%. And then third, I would just say, I can win. If you look at the 2018 midterms and who flipped really tough districts around our country and held tough districts, it was a lot of veterans, it was a lot of women veterans. You look at Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger recently in Virginia and New Jersey, not only won, but won resoundingly in purple areas. Veterans outperform up to 6 points higher than non-veterans. And we're already seeing that on the ground with the broad coalition that we are building. They can excite Democrats, but also bring in independents and even a lot of Republicans. And we're going to have the resources to do it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Maura. The next candidate is Christian.
The one thing that I think unites people in this country, Democrat, Independent, Republicans, is how sick they are of the corruption and of the failure of Washington. The fact that it's letting everyone down. And I've talked to a lot of Republicans on this trail that are sick of members of Congress trading stocks, that are sick of members of Congress becoming lobbyists, that are sick of the amount of money in politics from corporations, that are sick of the fact that this administration certainly looks like it's engaging in a lot of self-dealing. The candidate that's going to be able to win in November is the candidate that can actually channel the frustrations that people have in this country and lay out concrete solutions for dealing with them. The reality is we need reformers in Washington with a heck of a lot of fight. I have a record of taking on fights, whether it's chasing down war criminals or defending our service members in our courtrooms. I have a vision for how we actually tackle our enduring problems in this country. I'm talking about health care. I'm talking about child care. We haven't talked about this. Anyone in this state that has kids that are under 5 or is a grandparent that has kids having kids right now knows how broken our child care system is. We need candidates that have laid out a vision. How do we get to a universal child care system? How do we make sure you have a fair shake in America? We've laid that out. I'm confident if we go into the general election, if I have the honor of going in to represent the Democratic Party, that we will build a winning coalition, and that coalition is about taking on business as usual in Washington that's failing every single one.
Thank you. The next candidate is Carleigh.
How do we win a general election? With all of your help. I'm serious about that. Democracy is not something that happens only on election day. It's not something that happens in DC. It's not something that happens on select board meetings on Monday night. It's something that happens with all of us literally all the time. Raise your hand if you've ever run for local office in this room. Raise your hand if you've ever written postcards to somebody to try to convince them to vote. Raise your hand if you've stood outside a polling place or knocked a door or made a phone call. Yeah, we're all really good at democracy. That's why we're sitting in this sweltering hot room on a Wednesday night, 100+ days before an election, to figure out which one of us is going to represent us down in DC. I think that people in the state of New Hampshire, we want to be able to afford to live here. We want to be safe in our homes. We want a functioning government, and we want the temperature of our politics turned so far down. I think that I am an excellent candidate and would do a great job representing us because I have spent the last 12 months driving around this district listening to people, asking questions, not making assumptions or telling people why they're wrong or what they need, but really listening about what we can do so that we can organize and build power and push for change. And as a result of that listening, I have been in communities that have told me they haven't seen a Democrat in decades, right? I have put together a coalition, not just of people who are progressive Democrats, but people from across the political spectrum who just want good people in Washington that will be accountable to us and not their billionaire donors, who will actually do something about the situation that we are finding ourselves in, because we can't keep doing this. We can't keep doing this as a country. We have to get serious about the choices that we have, because we have this power. The billionaires may have lots of money, but they don't have us. They don't have our votes. They don't have our work ethic. We are world builders. We are parents and educators and organizers and students and activists, and we can build power together and change the future of this country if
Carleigh.
we just choose to.
Thank you. The next candidate speaking is Heath.
So I believe that I'm the candidate who's best for the job because of a few different reasons. For starters, I represent a Republican district in the New Hampshire State Legislature, and I had to build coalitions in order to do it. I had to talk to Democrats, Republicans, independents, people who prefer to stay on the couch, and I had to get them to come out and vote for me. And I've done the same thing in Concord. I had 28 of my bills pass our chamber last year. I've had 10 signed by the governor. And I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to accomplish, especially in a Republican trifecta. But what I'm more proud of is being able to stop a lot of the bad things that the Republicans have been pushing in Concord. And we need people who are going to be able to find those cracks, find those votes on key issues, especially when we're seeing Washington, only a handful of representative districts changing hands. And that meaning that there's only going to be a difference of a few votes between the Democrats and the Republicans. We need people who are going to be able to find those cracks, be able to figure out how we can flip those votes. And that's what I've done in the state legislature. I also think that we need to look at the polling that's come out. I mean, I'm currently polling at 10%. I'm one of 2 candidates who's been polling in the double digits. But more importantly is the crosstabs. The fact of the matter is I'm polling at 46% with independents and Republicans. The next closest Democrat is at 12. And even more importantly, though, I think that when we're looking at that, it's how we are reaching out to these people. It's the fact that we need to be talking to them anywhere that we can. We need to be meeting with people outside of the Democratic Party because we need to excite people. That's been our problem. That's why we lost in 2016. That's why we lost in 2024. Because people did not feel compelled to come out and vote for a Democrat. We need to give them a reason. We need to give them a fight and a choice that isn't just, I don't want a Republican, but I want to vote for a Democrat. And that's how we need to motivate people. Thank you.
Wonderful. The next candidate is Sarah.
All right, guys, so representation is a conversation, and that's been a motto of our campaign. I know my fellow candidates will chuckle at this because when you have a news or media piece that goes out on social media, your entire team says, don't look at it, don't read the comments. But I do. And I go through the comments, and I click on them, and if they are a New Hampshire resident, I start a conversation, and I build a bridge. I want to talk a little bit about this district. It's 28% Democrat, 33% Republican, and 40% independents like my husband. I'm the only Harley-riding hunting family on the ticket. I also am very honored to have Adam Kinzinger's endorsement. Anybody know who he is? The Republican who stood up? Yep. And why this means so much to me is Adam has seen me stand up in the face of Putin. He knows I'm on a hit list, and he knows I won't stand down, and I don't back down from a tough fight, even if I'm targeted. We need people in Congress who are going to show up and not be afraid to do what's right because of a cushy job or paycheck. This is a role of service. I'm not a career politician. I'm not a millionaire. I'm a New Hampshire mom who has rolled up her sleeves to get things done and broke into the system without a title to get billions of dollars of aid through Speaker Johnson's office. I flew to Shreveport, Louisiana to do it, to build coalition. I've headed a nationwide coalition with a diverse background of people. I was invited to Congressman Bacon's holiday party. Great guy from Nebraska. Don't agree with him on everything. We work great together. This is a time when we get to choose who we put forward to actually do this job and lead the change. And New Hampshire has always been a leader in that in our nation, and we can do this now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And the final candidate for this section is Bill.
Okay, as far as my attractiveness to, let's say, people on the other side, I am a lifelong blue-collar worker. I work in a factory currently. I've driven a truck for 12 years, worked in auto repair, worked in a bowling alley. So I know these people. These are the people that I've been around for a long time. And I'll tell you what, here's what they're all about. There's a lot of feeling among them that they just don't matter anymore. And the reason that they feel that they don't matter is because of that wealth, that money in politics. I'll give you an example of this. In 2016, when Clinton was running against the other guy, they all wanted me to vote for him. And they said, you should vote for him because he's so rich, money can't influence him. So, it's funny to laugh at now. They're terrible judges of character, but they are honest in terms of what really is motivating them. They're frustrated right now, and they're frustrated because they know he's not their savior, he's not going to help them. I'm running a campaign where I'm not taking any money at all, and I'm doing this because I want to show people that I value them, and I want to show them that they're valued as well. I know that they respect me for this because I talk to them at work, and they say, that's great, more people should do that. I'm doing it because I want to show them that, hey, look, someone like us can prove that we can do great things as well. That's another thing that they're attracted to. They love nothing more than proving somebody that said it can't be done, that someone like us, a blue-collar worker like us, can get it done. So that's why I think that I'll be attracted to them. If I do win, I won't be out looking for handouts. I'll just be going around to every Walmart and every fair and talking to anybody in a red hat and just trying to get them to understand that we actually do care about them enough to send people like me to represent them. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the fifth question is an issue that is weighing heavy on the minds of lots of voters, It's the idea of standing up to your own side. If elected to Congress, you will face moments where party leadership, your most vocal supporters, or even donors will want you to take a position that you are not comfortable taking. Can you please give voters a specific example from your record or life of a time when you took a position that cost you something politically or personally, and what did it teach you? The first candidate to speak will be Sarah.
All right, I don't know that it's cost me anything. I think I've actually been pretty successful to this point for standing up for what I believe is right. If you go to my website, sarahc603.com, you will see a rotation at the top that says people over politics, party, and profits. And that's how I operate, and that's what I believe we need right now. One of the reasons that I'm running, and if you had asked me 15 months ago if I would do this, I would have laughed. In fact, I did. How is a working class mom of 3 who's done nonprofit work going to run for Congress? And I had people looking at me saying, Sarah, you know the lay of the land when nothing is business as usual in DC. You've been able to get things through that people said was impossible. And not only that, but Jake Sullivan's whole team knows me. Why? Because I would march myself into the White House and meet with the national security team and express my concern about how things were going and what they were doing. I've met with every single member on the Hill. We don't have to compromise our morals and ethics to actually get something done. And in fact, right now, it's absolutely essential that we don't. So when I go into a room, no matter who's at the table, Democrat, Republican, or Independent, they know I'm ready to show up and find a solution and move things forward. And that's what we need more than anything. If we are not able to put a candidate in office to move things forward at this midterm, I can guarantee you we will see Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance marching into the White House after 2028. This is not a joking matter to me, and it's incredibly important. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. The next candidate to speak will be Bill.
What's the question again?
Standing up to your own side.
Oh, standing up to my own side? I mean, my God, I'm literally trying to change my entire party to see that it needs to be a party that values people rather than that wealth. I'm sure you've all gotten the text. For example, probably this afternoon, someone wants another $25 to show that you're a fighter, and you're going to join the fight against that guy. How about we send out a text and say, hey, where the heck do you live, and have you joined your local Democratic committee? Because people have value and we need to get more people involved in these things. So yeah, I mean, I would stand up to my party any single time. I'm somebody who obviously believes in principles. I'm trying to change the values of 350 million Americans. So yeah, I'm not gonna give up because somebody with money, well, I'm not gonna have any money, so I don't have to worry about the donors. But like even my party leadership, no, we have to change our party. We have to become a party that values people again. We gotta be those people. That was all our great years, our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. We valued people. We didn't worry about the wealth. The wealth was there to take care of the people. So yeah, I'm going to continue to push for this. If you send me, I will fight for this, because the only way we're going to get through this is if we take it in 2028 as well. Because if we don't, it's going to be a nightmare. They're going to run on, it's all their fault and they deserve to be punished. And if they get all 3 in 2028, look out, man. I think this one might be over. So I'm hoping that we can, even if I don't win this, if I can change enough of your minds on this and try and get some pressure to be that party that values people and run on all of those things that he vetoes and say we're going to get it done on the first day, I think we can bring people over here, and I think that we can have a nice little winning streak. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. And the next candidate to speak will be Maura.
The greatest honor in my life has been serving as a lieutenant of Marines in the Iraq War. as a number of veterans in this room will understand, I don't talk about it. Candidly, it's pretty hard to talk about. The young men and women that I served with, many of whom are just 18 or 19 years old, they graduated from places like Winnicott RTC, UNH, Central High School in Manchester, Exeter High School. And they raised their right hand and, in a time of war, in our case, swore a really solemn oath to support and defend our Constitution, not to a president or not to a political party. The missions that I used to have to ask those incredibly brave and selfless young men and women to go on are still troubling to talk about to this day. Their courage, their commitment to our country is what has driven me, propelled me to make sure that everybody, particularly working kids and working families, have a voice at the table in Washington. So I share that with you just to say that my principles and my values are very clear. Nobody who ever donates to my campaign is ever going to influence how I vote. Sending those young men and women into harm's way is far and away the hardest thing I've ever done. It is the hardest thing I'll ever have to do. So telling the Speaker of my own party that I'm not voting for him, like, just really doesn't faze me very much. That's probably the best way that I could go on about, standing up to 4-star generals at the Pentagon. I'm really proud of when I did that. I could talk about running against Chris Pappas in 2018, my now friend and our congressman, when everyone told me not to. But I think the real story is just my service in Iraq. Thank you.
Thank you, Maura. The next candidate is Christian.
I think this hits on the one thing that seems to be so missing in our politics. Courage. Courage to do the right thing. Courage to stand up to your own party. Courage to stand against the grain. Let me tell you one story from my experience. So I mentioned before I was appointed by Biden to the Pentagon. I was their special counsel, sitting in the Office of Secretary of Defense. When you're special counsel, that basically means you get all the general counsel's projects that are not very fun, to put it mildly. One of them was Guantanamo. I was basically in charge of trying, from the legal perspective, of trying to see how do we close down Guantanamo, how do we reduce that detainee population. One of the duties I also had was to actually sit down with the prosecutors of Guantanamo and make sure that they were following the law and the rules that we believed in were really important in those proceedings. Well, that one-star admiral, chief prosecutor, wanted to bring in torture-derived evidence into the proceedings. Completely anathema to certainly my values, the values of the administration, even certain Republicans like John McCain. And my job was to tell him, you can't do that. Full stop. Well, that fight lasted for months to eventually a culmination that went, it's either Christian or the one-star. Fortunately, better minds prevailed, and they said, well, the one-star's got to go. Okay, so I got to keep my job. I got to keep that evidence out of those proceedings. I got to ensure that those proceedings, as troubling as they are in so many ways, and I'm happy to have a longer conversation about that, at least did not backslide to be based on torture-derived evidence. But what we need, to me, the critical ingredient that is missing in our politics is this question. Who's going to do the right thing for their country and for their community?
Thank you. The next candidate to speak will be Carleigh.
When have you done something not in your own interest or stood up against? Well, I think that we definitely need to be a lot better at disagreeing and being okay with disagreement and recognizing that we can disagree and not walk away from the process or from each other. I think that's something that's really, really important and missing from Washington, but very present at the local level. There are many people in this room that I have voted against or disagreed with. You can ask Erica, we have very different approaches to immigration here in Hampton. And guess what? We got it across the finish line and ended up having our select board vote to oppose an agreement with ICE here. We got people to change their votes on that, which was really important. And so what I think is most important is to recognize, there are many ways to do things. There is not always just one right way. And in Washington, I think we need people who recognize that it's not always about fighting against things. It's about fighting for people. We need people who can fight for people. So one thing that I've done that is very much not in my own best interest, I could talk about union organizing. That was not in my own best interest, but it did lead to the biggest union victory in Massachusetts history in over a decade, which was pretty cool. It cost me my job, which was not great, but it was good. It was worth it. The contract was good. But what I would talk about is not using social media in this campaign. Like the number of people in this room even who tell me I'm an absolute idiot for refusing to pay Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk to post on their websites and spam you all with my face and me telling you how great I am, is a huge problem, right? Social media is an issue in our country, and we are not going to gain power and organize by continuing to use it. And so the number of people who have said that is not something that is in your own personal interest, I hear that, and I also think it is in absolutely the interest of this country that we learn how to have conversations in person, and we learn how to build power outside of platforms that are owned and operated by right-wing billionaires that are created to incentivize disagreement and outrage and division and fear, and to monetize all of these things instead of bringing us together, because instead of bringing us together.
And the final candidate to speak to question 5 will be Heath.
Thank you. So, I have a record. Anybody can see how I voted on any issue that's come through the New Hampshire State Legislature. And hell, I mean, I've even sponsored pieces of legislation that some people have told me, hey, you probably shouldn't file that. Things like taxation of second homes and making sure that we actually defend our National Guard troops by keeping them here rather than deploying them to overseas wars without an official declaration from Congress. You know, basic things like that, that Democrats in the state legislature in Concord have said, you should not vote for that, or you should not be submitting that. And I've stood up to them. I've stood up to Senator Jean Shaheen. I don't know if any of you saw the clip from a number of months ago where she was giving a speech at the Eleanor Roosevelt dinner, and she mentioned that nobody had fought harder for the ACA tax credits than her and Senator Hassan. And I called her out. I said, then why did you vote to reopen the government? And I stand by that question. I have a number of friends who are looking at moving to Canada, to Brazil, to make sure that they are able to get the health care that they need, because their health care increased 2 or 3 times because of that vote. And so I'm willing to call out people, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Senator Shaheen, whether it's a leading Democrat, it doesn't matter. I will be there to fight for the people and fight for the values that we all believe in, because we need leaders who are going to hold true to their convictions rather than fold to whoever the biggest donor is. And that's something that I make a promise to. Thank you.
Wonderful. And as time permits, because of candidates' adherence to our time requirements, we will go into a 6th question portion now. And the question is on one of character. Voters want people of integrity and character. Please tell us about a time that you fell short on a character or integrity test, including how it happened, what you learned, and how it formed you as a person. The candidate that will be speaking first is Bill.
I've never fallen short of
That's great.
You can believe me, I'm a politician. No, I think probably the one thing, if I want to talk about something that I can think of right now in terms of where I fell short, was serving in the New Hampshire House. I did 2 years in the New Hampshire House. And I went in with the idea that what I wanted to do was universal school lunch program, because that means a lot to me. It seems insane that we force children to go to school and then we don't feed them. You know, I mean, that's just nuts. So I wanted to get that done. I couldn't file my first year because it was my first year, and then going into the second year, I really didn't understand it enough, and I said, okay, well, I'm really only here to keep the seat because nobody else wanted it, and I volunteered to do it. But by the time I left there, I really felt like, you know, I had an opportunity to do something great for a lot of kids that really need it, and I let myself down on that. I mean, when people ask me, what am I going to do when I get there, what's my first bill? It's that's first day. That's every single budget that I'm involved in is going to be that. it seems morally cruel to have a system in which you have children who are both too rich for free lunch and too poor to eat. I don't understand how a 5, 6, 7-year-old understands that situation. So yeah, that still worries me. That still haunts me that I did not do that. I let them down in that. So if I get another chance, yes, it's the first thing I'm doing. But yeah, other than that, no integrity issues. Thank you.
The next candidate to speak will be Maura.
Well, this is a great question, and I don't know if I can, it's hard to follow a Bill on that one. That's a great way to kick it off. I think something I think back to a lot was one of the first policies I worked on when I was a senior official at the Pentagon, and I was new coming over there from the VA, and we were straight smack dab in the middle of the transgender service fight. And it was like my 3rd or 4th day. And the battle was trying to get consensus for the policy within the Pentagon, so then we could take it to congressional leaders and ultimately move forward. I was very much on the side of, somebody who's willing to serve our country when 1% of people serve should be able to do so. As a Marine, I would say semper fidelis to that individual. And some of those discussions just got candidly pretty ugly between fellow political officials and some of the senior military officers. And there was a lot at stake, and it was a pretty tense and emotional issue. And I think I look back, and there's probably some of those conversations that I wish I'd handled a little bit better. And I've learned a lot from that, and it's not something that I'm proud of. I'm proud of the outcome. I'm proud of the result. I'm really proud to be a part of the team that got that through. Of course, Donald Trump with this, of course, rolled it back, so we have a lot to work on. But it was a really humbling point for me as someone who was young but very, very senior and really, really passionate, where I learned a hard way that the way you get things done in Washington is not by yourself. It's by building coalitions. And you can have the best ideas in the world and the fanciest degrees and all the things. It doesn't matter if you can't bring people along with you. And so that was a humbling lesson to learn at a young age. I'm glad I had the chance to learn it when I did, and I hope that I'm a better leader going forward from it.
Thank you. Next will be Christian.
Thank you.
This is a great question. When I was my whole life, basically, from 15, I always thought about national service and how important it was. Something that, was rooted in me for whatever reason. And, I went to college in my 20s. The Iraq War was kicking off. And, I think a lot of people certainly had the feeling that I did. Was this idea, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to do your part? And one road led to the next, into the next. Opportunities came, go to law school, go get a fancy job, go do well, make some money, live in comfort. And before I knew it, I was 35 years old. And I'd done what I felt was nothing for my country. And to me, that was like such a feeling of, oh my gosh, like I'm failing this integrity test, the very question he asked. And so what did I do? I actually joined the military at 35. Okay, to tell you how much of a fish out of water I was. I had never shot a gun. I was older than everyone in my drill class, my basic training class, and older than my drill sergeants too. Okay? But I thought you gotta do something, even if it's uncomfortable, you have to do something. And in fact, I think that's the most important thing. People doing uncomfortable things for their country and for their community. That's how we fix this country. And so to me, it has been one of the most fulfilling things that I have done. All right? Serving and defending our service members when they have a serious legal problem and doing my part for country and community. This is a great question. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. The next candidate to speak will be Carleigh.
Cool. God, I feel like I fall short at like a million little ways all the time. But I also am somebody who really tries to extend grace to other people and extend it to myself, and really does believe that like the perfect is the enemy of the good. And it's really important that we have people who can campaign with integrity so that they can govern with integrity. And like at the end of the day, regardless of the outcome of this election, like I know that I have to go home and face my kids. And they are like an automatic check on everything that I say and that I do, because I know they are watching. No one gives more critical feedback than my daughter, or workshops jokes with me like she does. And I think that's so, so important. And I think that, you know, like a little story would be, my parents and I have lots of disagreements about many things, political and otherwise. And they wanted me to enroll Cyrilina in CCD at the Catholic Church. And I grew up Catholic, and I love the Catholic Church's commitment to economic justice and social justice, solidarity, subsidiarity. And I think this is so amazing. And I also have two sisters who are married to women, and I do not agree with the Catholic Church's position on same-sex marriage or abortion. And this is something that I really struggled with. And so for a couple of weeks while we were sending my daughter to Catholic Church CCD, my husband and my son and I were going to the UCC here in Hampton because it's open and affirming, and finding a community there. And at a certain point, we just couldn't maintain this anymore. My sisters were giving me shit for sending Cyrilina to the Catholic Church. My mom was giving me crap for sending Lyndon to a Protestant church, and I just felt like I was failing everybody. And so ultimately, we decided to let Cyrilina figure out what she wants to do, and she goes to both of them. But we started bringing her to the UCC with us because it's really important as a family that we have the opportunity to show where we want to be spending our time and building community in the ways that are meaningful to us. So
Thank you.
one fun example of falling short.
Next is Heath.
Yeah, so thinking about, you know, some failures that I've had, you know, I mean, you can't have success without failures. But when thinking about this past budget cycle and some of the promises that Governor Ayotte had made, she had stated that she wanted to veto the proposed budget because of three real reasons. Group 2 retirement funding, which got fixed, special education funding in Manchester, which they put a Band-Aid on, and DHHS/Medicaid funds. I was really disappointed in myself because we had this budget passed by one vote, and I had talked to a number of Medicaid recipients and members of the disability community, people who relied on these programs. And I was disgusted by myself and the fact that I wasn't able to get one vote, because that's all I needed. And I didn't talk to enough people. And it's the fact that you try and reach out to as many folks as possible. And you think about, who could I have had that conversation with? Whose mind could I have changed? And you think about the impact. And we actually have an income tax in the state. The Republicans don't want to admit it, but we have an income tax, and it only affects Medicaid recipients, the people who have to be low income to qualify, which then we are going to charge them nearly $300 a month in order to access the care that they need, as well as put work requirements on them. People who may not necessarily be able to get a job without that Medicaid coverage. It is so detrimental. And I am just disappointed in myself that I wasn't able to find that one vote. But that's why we need to make sure that we have the votes no matter what next time. And that we have Democrats winning up and down the ballot. Because without them, we're going to see an erosion of the critical care and programs that we rely on. Thank you.
Wonderful. And the final candidate to speak will be Sarah.
Thank you, guys. So one of the things that I was very lucky to receive is to be taught in my undergrad by wonderful teachers. And I remember an assignment that was incredibly difficult, and we were supposed to make 50 mistakes. And that taught me so much about not being afraid to take a risk and make that mistake, because we build for it, and we build from it, and we learn from it. And that's something that I've carried through all of my classrooms with my kids and in my work. I want to get personal on this instead of professional, because I think it's important for you all to know who I am. You may not know my name yet, you may have seen me somewhere, you may have gotten some of my information, And New Hampshire votes for people. We're still a people-to-people political space, and I love that about us. So a few years ago, my great aunt, who I was close to, she actually came through Vienna, part of my mention earlier, through the UK to here during World War II. My family are Holocaust survivors. And she really wanted me to come visit her. And I didn't get a chance. And that informs how I show up now. Because if you're not in the room, and if you're not in the room in Washington, D.C., your voice does not matter. Representation matters. So for me now, when I believe it's important for me to show up, I figure out a way to show up. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we enter the portion with closing remarks, we're going to go through and we're going to do a lightning round. So this is a, let's say, 1 to 3 word answer. We're not going to take it on any elaborations or sentences. We're going to hold to form here. There will be 6 questions. There will be 6 questions, and each of you will get a chance to answer one. Carleigh will answer the first one, and we'll move down the line, and then we'll begin with the next candidate for the next one. Carleigh, you'll begin our lightning round. The first question is, what is the most overused word this election cycle?
Affordability.
Sarah?
Grassroots.
Affordability. Yeah, it's affordability.
I can't say the same thing as that. Fighting.
I get 3 words, right? Yeah. Affordability and change. Most overused.
Great. The next question is, what is your favorite singer or band in the segment?
The election rides on this one.
Yeah.
I would say 2, Traveling Wilburys and Dropkick Murphys.
Singer and band?
Or
band.
Like,
Okay.
come on, Bill.
I'm gonna go with Metric, and the only dude in this room that also likes Metric is married to this woman. So I don't even get his vote. Yeah. I mean, I know that I'm on the younger side, so I mean, maybe I have to choose. Oh yeah, like yeah, we'll go with AC/DC.
This is easy. The boss, Bruce Springsteen.
My wife absolutely hates this band. She's sitting right there, but it's The Clash.
And then we'll move back to Carleigh.
Oh, yeah. Come on, team. Arlo Guthrie.
So for the third question, we'll begin with Bill. The question is yard signs or door knocking?
Yard signs. Door knocking.
Both. Yeah.
Door knocking.
All right, and then we'll move back to Carleigh and Sarah.
Throw it down, guys.
Full fan. Targeted door knocking, strategic signs.
All right, the fourth question begins with Heath. We're going to keep it a very New England here. Lobster roll, hot with butter or cold with mayo?
Both good. I will say I do prefer mine cold.
I totally agree with Heath on that. So, yeah, they're both great, but cold.
Cold with a beer.
Anything as long as someone else is buying.
Depends on market price.
Traditional, mayo, toasted bun,
Wonderful.
lobster.
There we go.
Yeah, I think cold.
Awesome. For the fifth question, we have, what is one word your staff would use to describe you?
They're standing in the front row.
I know.
It's hyphenated, but hardworking.
All right.
It can be a little intense. Just a little.
Yeah, hardworking, I think. Yeah, would be a good one. But in terms of an actual better answer than that, my staff I think would act.
Let's keep on filling in.
Inquisitive or chatty?
Great.
They can push back on this. Authentic, determined, a little bit like a mom.
All right.
Way too overly optimistic.
We'll begin with Christian, and the final question here. Who is one person currently serving in office, brownie points for how local you get, that you respect and align with?
The Bernie Sanders.
Throw
down, throw down.
Throw it down.
We got this.
Mike Edgar, state rep.
Ro Khanna for the Epstein Files.
Probably Elizabeth Warren, closest here.
Politics.
Erica DeVries, even if she doesn't. Even if she doesn't like our committee, you know, I always appreciate your hard work.
I'd say one is retired Senator Martha Fuller Clark, and then fellow Iraq War veteran Congressman Jason Crow for standing up so strongly against this illegal war in the world.
Wonderful. Candidates, we will now be moving on to the portion that has your closing remarks. So the order that we will go in is the order that we worked off the first question with, which began with Carleigh.
Thank you to everyone for being here tonight. The question that we have to answer in a little more than 100 days is, who do we want to represent us down in Washington? Who do we want to sit around the table where the decisions that affect all of our lives are being made? I have spent the last 12 months now driving all around this district. I have put 23,000 miles on my car, and I have been in your driveways and your living rooms. I have been in your kitchens. I've been in church basements and union halls, and everywhere I've gone, I've asked people a simple question, which is, what do you wish that politicians understood better about your experiences? Because I think we need politicians who start with listening and curiosity and asking questions and build power from there. And because I've been able to be in so many different places and hear so many different stories, you know, about the healthcare you can't afford, about how you're stepping in to be a child care provider for your grandkids, about how you're helping your kids afford to pay for their student loans or for their first apartment out of college. I realized also, not being on social media, that there are so many things that we agree on in this country. The divides are not between regular people. They are between regular people and a political and an economic system that does not serve us. And lucky for us, there's something we can do about it, right? We can choose who we want to represent us in Washington. We can choose someone who's been in our living rooms and our driveways and who listens and who has postcards for you to fill out right there for you to tell me what you wish that I understood better, who has a website that categorizes and catalogs over 100 of these events and is now going to ask you a second question, which is, how do you want to get involved in this campaign? And if you do want to get involved, I would love to have you, whatever your ideas, whatever your capacity, because again, this is not something that I do alone. This is something that we all do together. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you, Alex, for moderating.
Thank you. Next will be Heath.
Well, thank you again for everyone being here tonight. It's such an honor to have the opportunity to even run for this seat. And in my time running for this office, I've seen and talked to so many of you, and I've heard a lot of the same thing. You know, we need somebody who's going to be a hard fighter, who's electable, who's actually able to stand up to Trump in the administration that we're seeing. We need people who have the experience. I am somebody with a record. I'm a known quantity. I was the first union-endorsed candidate in this race. I have the support from the IBEW 104, as well as the UNH OAW. I'm very proud of what I've been able to do, and as well as gaining the support of over 40 state representatives and other local elected officials. And despite being 25, I'm the one with the most experience as an elected, and I think that that's a very valuable thing, especially as we're looking at a situation in Washington where so many unknowns and different factors are going to be at play. So I thank all of you for being here tonight, and I look forward to getting to meet all of you a little bit more face to face, and I hope that I answered all of your questions. If I haven't, I hope that you have the opportunity to come and find me, so that we can have a little bit more of an in-depth conversation. Because our politicians should be transparent, they should be clear, and we should know exactly what they stand for. Because too many of them are able to wiggle around and pretend that they stand for everything, rather than actually standing for something. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sarah.
Thank you everyone for being out here tonight, for spending this evening with us, for dealing with the heat, and for being involved. It really takes all of us. And what I said earlier, I meant representation matters. Having a voice in the room matters. During a campaign event recently, a veteran looked at me and said, "I just want to be proud of my country again." Yeah, I see the head nods. I felt that to my core too. We can do this. We can make this change right now in this election. I don't need $1 million when people cannot afford groceries or life-saving medication. We can do this, and we should do this differently. I need your living room, your kitchen table, your porch, your patio to bring people together. We have an opportunity right now to forge this path ahead and to show the rest of the nation that New Hampshire stands for real change. When people ask me why I'm running for Congress, I say I can't not. I have the ability to do something in this moment right now, and I cannot turn my back. I graduated high school as a first responder, so for me, I run in to help. And right now, when the house is on fire and the children are inside, you grab the hose and you put the fire out. I'm asking you to turn on the water with me. Put the fire out and rebuild for the future we want in this district, in this state, and in this country. Please chime in with any of my staff. I'll be here after, and find me on Sarah C. 603. Real quick, I want to check with you guys. Who's feeling hopeful after this evening? A little bit. Thank you to my primary mates and the hosts for giving us all this hope tonight. Thank you so much.
Cool. Next is Bill.
Okay, so what I really need you to leave with is really this idea that what I'm trying to do here by not taking any of that money is really show you how little value that money has. Those ads, those flyers, the signs, all of that stuff doesn't influence you, okay? The only thing that influences you are the people in this room. This is where the rubber meets the road. You are all the power behind that seat, both within the vote, as well as going out and being the voice that gets that person elected, okay? Whether you vote for me or not, you need to understand this. You are all the power that there is. There is no reason whatsoever that any elected official should ever think about anyone but the people and value those people. We need to stand up and start doing this. No one's ever going to go off to Washington and vote to get rid of it. But if you start demanding of your politicians, people who are running for office, and say, wait a minute, there was this guy, he's a blue-collar worker, he paid for it on his own dime, he went around, he talked to people, he influenced people. Why do you think you need all of that money? Who did it come from? What do you think it's going to do for you? All the power comes from the people. If you ask them to trust you and not take that money, go ahead and deliver back to them. Again, it doesn't have to be me, but we have to start changing our party from a party that thinks way too much about wealth and concentrates solely on valuing people again. All of our problems are choices between people and wealth, and we're choosing wealth way too often. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Maura.
Well, Sarah mentioned a few minutes ago about showing up. So I just want to thank all of you for showing up tonight. This says so much about our commitment to our state, our community, and our country, that we are all here. Thank you to Alex for a terrific forum, and thank you to my fellow candidates for showing up. It's wonderful to be with you. We have a government right now that is of the billionaires, by the corrupt, and for one another. And it doesn't have to be like that. And it is time, it is so time, for a new generation of leadership grounded in service and ready to shake up Washington and take on this administration and build an economy that works for all of us. Service was just the way I was raised. My grandfathers fought in World War II. My grandmothers were leaders in Jesuit education. My mom worked in a nonprofit. All 4 of my siblings, we all went into service professions. My journey of service started just before 9/11 and then continued when my unit was going to Fallujah in 2005 and I voluntarily re-upped to join them. And then after the Marines, I came here to campaign for Barack Obama because it was the right thing for our country. And then years later, I stepped up to serve again when 40 veterans died at the VA because not serving then, it wasn't right. And then I was proud to serve fellow military families at the Pentagon. And then for close to the last 10 years, I've been showing up for Democrats all around our state and our Democratic Party, helping to elect Democrats up and down the ticket. And I've been really proud to work with our Congressman, my friend Chris Pappas, on his Veterans Advisory Committee and serve as a part of City Year in our state. And I'm stepping up to serve again because these are serious times and we need proven leaders who are grounded in service, but also can take on one heck of a tough fight to root out corruption, to hold this administration accountable, and to bring down costs so this economy works for everybody. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Maura. And the final speaker is Christian.
Well, at the beginning of this conversation, I talked about how important it was that we have someone that's going to fight and take on this administration. But I actually haven't asked for all of you. Your country needs you. Every single one of you. It needs you to be engaged. It needs you to be involved. It needs you to have your voice heard in this election. The design of this administration, the design of Trump and Stephen Miller, and pick whatever other ghoul you want, is to make you all feel powerless. To make you all feel like your voice doesn't matter. This is how it is. And what you need desperately in Congress that is failing us right now are folks that are gonna take the fight to Washington, to take the fight against the status quo, to take the fight against Trump, and to take the fight against the billionaires and the AI companies and the crypto companies and the organizations that have a vested interest in continuing to keep things the way they are. And this is the one thing I'll say. My whole life I've taken on big fights. Whole life, whether it was when I was practicing law, when I was chasing down war criminals, whether it's defending our service members or standing up to people at the Pentagon. And what I will say, my solemn promise to every single one of you, if I go to Washington, I'm gonna fight like hell for every single one of you to actually get a fair shake, because you're not. Washington is failing you, and you deserve so much better. And I hope you'll join me in that fight, because we can take this administration down. We can change the way things are done in Washington. Thank you very much.
I'd like to take a second to thank the candidates for their participation and all the attendees for being here. As I mentioned at the onset of our program, we'll have time now for people to mingle, ask candidates questions that they still have, and at a certain point, it will be taken outside.